Hi, everybody. Welcome to the dungeon. My name is Robin, and today is Adventures in Boroland. I've been working at the Adrian Center up in Michigan, and they were moving a whole bunch of stuff around in this closet to make room for more stuff. And a lot of it was big Boro tubing, like 3-inch tubing, and like 2-inch rod that I can't use, and our torches aren't big enough to work it. So all of that went down into the basement. And there was this box left over full of Boro color. And Val asked if I wanted it. And of course, I can't say no to any kind of glass color. So I brought it home and separated it all out. And this is what I found. So I have a whole bunch of these Borostix, like all sorts of different colors here. And I'm really excited to use these, all the colors. And these are just some of them. I also have a whole bunch of powders now to play around with, and a little bit of frit. And then I also have some tubing that I got. I got a whole bunch of this short pieces of tubing. And this is going to be perfect to practice the demo with. I want to start learning how to blow better vessels, and I know some of you have been asking about them, and hopefully this will be a perfect little diving board to jump off of when it comes to the very beginning of blowing and working Boro tubing. And as always, I hope you're doing safe and well out there. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time in the dungeon. Okay, I'm going to start out just by showing you what I'm going to use for this demo. And I have my 2 sizes of tubing here. I only need 1 of those little tubes. And then I want to use some North Star color that I got, some black powder here, and I don't have any of the proper pans and things, I guess, to put frit and powder on. So I'm going to put everything. There's the Blue Moon powder, and I also have some of this butterscotch frit. It's small frit. I'm going to put all of those on different graphite pads, and then I'll pull them into use later. Make sure you got proper ventilation when you're using powders. Okay, so I'm going to start out by opening up my smaller tube. And just from the small and the little bit of experience that I do have in Boro work, tubing work specifically, your tool can cool down the lip of the glass very quickly. So I am trying to heat up the tubing and then introduce my tool to kind of splay it open a bit. And that's all you need to do. That's the first step. So I made a couple of these just in case. And then I'm going to, let's bring in the bigger tube here, because I need to put these 2 tubes together. And that little tube is going to become like my straw to blow into. Okay, so I need a lot more heat here. And so I'm adding more oxygen, a little bit more propane, and it's hard for me to turn this larger tubing with one hand, but I do my best to get it as hot as possible right on the end and then cinch it down a little bit. All I need is for these 2 tubes to fit together. So it looks pretty good, and what I'm going to do is just tack fuse one spot and line it up. And then I'll go ahead and just kind of almost weld the 2 together. However, if you put too much heat onto the smaller tube, it can constrict and then cut off your airway. So make sure that when you're done here, you have an airway going through the whole tube. All right, on to the next step. I want to cut this down to the size that I'm looking for. I'm not looking to blow some big, fancy vessel or anything today. I just want to practice making a miniature vase. So I'm looking to get about 2 inches of tubing here. So I'm going to pour the heat on and just continue to turn and turn and turn. It's interesting because when you pull these apart, you can pull like a point, right? I'm not going to do that here. I'm just going to kind of swirl it off. I end up with kind of a wonky end that I'll fix here in a second. But I find that pulling out Maybe it's because I've had more practice, but pulling out the scallop tubing is a lot easier than pulling out just straight walled tubing. Anyway, I want to heat this little bottom part up and gently pull it off so that the tip is right in the center again. And I don't want to pull too much of it off because I don't want the bottom to get too thin either. So I'm just going to heat that up a little bit. And now I'm going to bring in like a punty. This is just a solid rod. It's going to be another handle so I can start to add my color to this. So I'm going to heat this up, and I was going to weld it on, and it's kind of hard for me to see in the flame when things are this bright. I might need some darker didiniums. But I get it on there. It's a little sloppy, but all I need to do is put my handle on and keep it as straight as possible while it cools down. And once everything sets up, then I can go ahead and start grabbing my color and bringing it over. I'll start out with the black powder here. I've rarely worked in color borosilicate, so if any of you are out there that are borosilicate people, forgive me if I if I mess this up. I always say that there's really no rules. There's just things that you should do and maybe things that you shouldn't do in glass. But how do you know to do them or not to do them if you don't try? So this is all coming from my knowledge of not only the hot shop, but the very few borosilicate demos that I have seen in my past. Okay, so I'm just trying to heat up little sections here. It's difficult for me to heat the whole thing up and still maintain control. So I'm just going to heat up little bits and add some black powder to one side and heat that up, and then heat up the top half, the left side of the glass, and get some of this blue moon powder in there as well. And, when everything was said and done, these two colors, when they met together, kind of had some cool reactions. So this was real fun to begin with. And one thing I noticed is that I feel like the color keeps the glass, it makes the glass harder to heat. You know what I mean? I don't know. Anyway, it seems like it takes longer to heat. So now that I have some of those colors on there, I am going to move over into my frit. This is butterscotch frit, but I think it is. I'm not sure. Anyway, I think I get this as hot as possible to pick up the frit, but I feel like I'm not nearly as close to being as hot as I need to be. So I just do my best to pick up as much frit as I can and then move on. And just heat. I'll get a little bit more, and then I decide I'm done with this. Because as soon as I go to roll on the marvering pad, it just feels like it immediately sets up. So anyway, I'm going to finish off here by just heating the bottom half now and really melt in that frit. Okay, so here's where things get a little different. After heating in the bottom part and melting that in, what I want to do is I want to kind of stretch the top part out into more of the shape I'm looking for, which is a long, tall, like a long-necked vessel. So I'm going to spend a little time pulling this out, and this is just the top half. And I'm going to pull it out until I like what I see. Like this is almost the finished shape. I just need to blow out that bottom a little bit more. I don't think I need to do more than that to practice with. I like to do my practice, simple like this, but not waste too much time messing around just because I know the more of these I do, the better I'll get. So I just kind of like to go through all the motions. Now I want to pull a little bit of that punty out of there, but not too much because, again, I need to make sure I have some thickness in here to blow out. All right, now all of my heat is going to be poured into the bottom of this. And I did actually speed a lot of just the heating up in this demonstration because it took probably a good maybe 3 minutes for me to get this thing as hot as I could and then blow it out. But before I blow it out, I wanted to kind of shape it up a little bit. And all I had handy was this spoon. And I figured, well, it's kind of got the curve that I'm looking for the bottom. So I'll just roll this in my spoon real quick to give it one final shape. And then, and now I'm ready. I'm going to switch hands real quick. And then one more time, pour on the heat. And when you think it's hot enough, you get it hotter, because I feel like, I said this earlier, but I feel like the color really constricts how hard you can blow this out. I really thought I got this hot enough, you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and blow this out, and I'm blowing pretty hard here. And I'm not getting much, but I do see it puffing up, which makes me extremely happy. And it looks even. So I decide I'm going to give it one more try. And this is kind of like the 2-puff vessel that I did. I'm only going to do a couple puffs in here because I don't want it to get so thin, because I can't see the thickness, the wall thickness. But at the same time, I want to play with some color too, right? But the blowing it out, I think, will come in time, just practicing and getting thinner and thinner. All right, now that the whole vessel is blown out, I want to add a foot to the bottom. So I get a nice big gather of clear. I could have gotten more than this, but I wrapped a little extra on there. And I do my best to add it as perfectly to the bottom as possible, like right on the center. And then I'm just going to use my little marvering pad there to push in the foot just a little bit. Actually, it's set up pretty quick, and I'm very shaky with my one hand. So as you can see, so it's hard for me to get, to the tool. And by the time I get to the tool, the glass is almost cool. It's almost like hard again. So I'm going to get this as hot as I can and come over here and just flatten it down. And I'm going to flatten it quickly this time, because I feel like the quicker I can get to doing what I need to do, the quicker it'll get into its shape. Now, this is something that I learned that is really helpful for me. And the bottom, I want to press an indentation into the very bottom of this. I'll do it again because it's not quite hot enough. But I'm pressing this in there because it definitely helps not only my punty come off easier, but it also helps it to stay standing straight up and down. And this right here is my little test to make sure I'm good to go and put my punty on. But, but before I can do that, well, let's put the punty on first. So I'm going to get my glass hot, round it out, put the punty on. But the thing is, I noticed is that now how am I going to take the top off without, constricting the hole? So what I'm going to do here is something that I do on some of my ornaments sometimes, because you have to have a hole in it somewhere. I'm going to heat up just one section of the neck. And then I'm just going to blow an air hole, and you can feel it and you can hear it when it goes through the glass. And then I'm just going to take off and pull away the glass tubing away from where the little opening is. And the opening is tiny, but I was able to clean this up a little bit. So when I'm cleaning the edge of my glass, I want to make sure that what I'm pulling off of the vessel is hotter, and I'm pulling it away with a cooler rod of clear. And I'm only pulling away just little tiny bits of the top to A, thin it out, and to B, straighten it up a little bit. And you can see that little tiny hole in there. I'm going to pull a little bit more off, and then we're going to open this up and be done. So again, this is, I have to laugh at myself sometimes because right here I had such a hard time getting my tool to go into the opening, and then it cools down the lip. So I had to make sure I got the opening hot, and then try to do my best to get my tool in there and stay in the heat in order for me to lift and open it just enough to where it made a nice looking shape. I didn't feel like I had to do any more than that, and I felt like, ooh, this is looking pretty good. This could go in a little miniature house. So I'm going to flatten the top down, and that is it. I'm like super happy with this. And if you guys have been, wondering about, or interested in getting into vessel making, maybe this is a good step to go from. Anyway, I'm going to heat up my tweezers here real quick, and then grab the opening and just gently knock it off, heat it up, and put it away. And with that said, you guys, let me know what you think, and I'll talk to you soon in the dungeon.